So what is Canadian work experience anyways? This is something that so many newcomers struggle with when it comes to the job search. Stick around and I'm going to walk you through 7 specific examples of what Canadian work experience actually looks like. My name's Shauna and this is Career Interrupted. When it comes to job searching, one of the top frustrations often faced by newcomers is this whole idea of getting Canadian work experience. It often feels like a catch-22 because you're trying to get your first job, yet you're going to interviews and employers are saying you need to have Canadian work experience. What does that even mean? Actually, what does that mean? So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through 7 specific examples of what Canadian work experience actually looks like from the perspective of an employer. So caveat, I'm not talking today about issues of residency and work permits and visas. This is strictly from the perspective of those skills that employers are really looking for when they say Canadian work experience. Okay, so translation, Canadian work experience basically means some soft skills. Here are 7 examples of those soft skills that employers are looking for. Make sure you stay to the very end because I am going to give you a simple hack that's going to make you stand out from other candidates and demonstrate you've got the Canadian work experience. Canadian business etiquette. So just like anywhere in the world, there are standards and norms of conduct when it comes to doing business in Canada. Employers are looking to make sure that you've got an understanding of Canadian business etiquette. Think about ways you can demonstrate this on your resume. If you've got any experience working in Canada at all, you're for sure highlighting that. But I would also say that volunteer experience would work here as well, especially if you've done any sort of volunteer work in an office environment. Another great example of illustrating your experience with Canadian business etiquette is experience at any sort of networking events that you might have. Make sure you highlight those items on your resume to show the employer that you definitely have Canadian work experience. Cross-cultural communication. So obviously communicating in different parts of the world all comes with different sort of codes of conduct, norms, and standards. A Canadian employer wants you to demonstrate that you've got an awareness of this fact and you do in fact understand how to communicate in this context. So if you've recently completed a degree or any sort of education program, it'd be great to highlight that on your resume. If you had any course material that was specific to the idea of cross-cultural communication, that might be an interesting thing to note as well. If you've done any volunteer work, networking events, etc., make sure that they're noted on your resume so that the employer can see that you clearly have experience with this idea of cross-cultural communication. And you're not taking for granted that things are gonna work exactly the same here in Canada as they do in other parts of the world. So emotional intelligence is basically demonstrating that you've got some sort of degree of self-awareness. And not only that, but you understand that your words and actions can impact others. So when we say Canadian work experience and when we say emotional intelligence, we're basically looking to see that you know how to interact with other people in a way that is respectful and considers and acknowledges how your actions might have an impact on the other person. So you can highlight this on your resume by demonstrating any sort of volunteer experience that you might have had, and likewise to any even part-time work experience that you've had, as well as interactions that you might have had from any sort of educational program that you've completed. Adaptability and flexibility. So Canadian employers want to see that you are adaptable and flexible and you can roll with the punches and go along with change that might happen in the workplace. A great thing to highlight on your resume to demonstrate your adaptability and flexibility might be any sort of work project that you had that was initiating any sort of change. Likewise, if you had experience inside of an educational program that demonstrates an ability to be flexible, highlight that as well. I think in light of COVID, we've all had to adapt and be flexible. So if you think of your life in terms of the context of COVID, there's probably something you had to adapt and be flexible with in order to be successful. This is something that you want to consider highlighting on your resume because, well, Canadian employers, they absolutely want to see adaptability and flexibility. Team orientation. Canadian employers want to see that you've got an ability to work in a team. So you guessed it, go and draw on any experience that you've had in this country working with other people. Don't care if it's volunteer experience, school experience, if you're on a sport team or whatever, highlight that on your resume to show that you've got experience working with other people. And the next item, conflict resolution and negotiation, goes hand in hand with this whole idea of having an ability to work in a team environment. So conflict resolution is so important because healthy conflict is going to be part of work here because sometimes we disagree to get to better solutions. So employers want to see that you've got experience working through situations of conflict and an ability to negotiate through that in order to affect a more positive outcome. Customer service. So employers absolutely want to see that you have a customer service orientation, even if you're not applying to a customer service role. Because reality check, most jobs do require some sort of customer service. Even if you're a project manager, for example, you're going to be working with clients. So this whole idea of being client focused and focused on understanding and delivering on the needs of a customer is usually pretty important to Canadian employers. Look to all the stuff you've done in Canada. You're going to see this come out in some sort of way, hopefully. Whether it was through a volunteer group or whether it was through a part-time job, whether it was through some sort of committee you volunteered on. Look for customer service and demonstrate that on your resume. Okay, so Canadian work experience, it's obscure, it's frustrating, it's annoying. I've named a few examples here and there could be others. Really, really simple tip. Look in that job posting you're applying to, look really, really closely for any sort of soft skills that the employer is looking for. As a newcomer, yeah, you know what? There might be some sort of bias to the side of things of assumptions that the employer is making that you don't have those soft skills. So look closely at the job posting. If the employer is calling out some specific soft skills in the job posting, make sure that you're highlighting on your resume, your cover letter, or both, that you've absolutely got those skills. Okay, and I promised you a hack. So easy to do. I think that you can set yourself apart as a job seeker by doing this really, really simple thing. And that is by showing up in a really intentional way on LinkedIn. So I hope that you take the time to set up a LinkedIn profile as part of your job search process. If you're a newcomer and you're feeling like I'm already up against a whole bunch of bias, let's start to beat down that bias and assumptions by giving the employer accurate and real information about you. So LinkedIn is an awesome complement to your resume, and rest assured that that employer is probably creeping you out on LinkedIn to see what you have going on after reviewing your resume. So make sure that you have a completed profile. You want to strive for LinkedIn All-Star status. I did a video on that. I'll link to that in the description as well. But seriously, take the time to set up a LinkedIn profile, because so many job seekers don't. This will absolutely give you an upper hand. Okay, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel here. Thanks so much for watching, and remember to make change work.